Good morrow to you all. You have fallen on bad times.
Brought to you by the Royal Holloway Shakespeare Society.
You join me, Theo Dudridge.
And me, Lynn Biles, as we bear some bardy truths.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bad Times. This week, I am joined by the designer for the founder, Ali Krausova. Say hi, Ali.
Hi, Theo.
How are you doing today?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm all right. A little bit tired. Third year
Yes.
life is a moving, but we vibe. We vibe.
Yeah, always busy.
Indeed, indeed. So, Ali is a second year English and American literature student, and she, as I said before, is the designer for the founder. So, Ali, as I mentioned before, you are a second year. Having gone through a very interesting first year, how are you finding both of your, or how did you find your first year, and how are you kind of finding second year now?
Yeah, that is so right. So, second year is so much better than my first year. I guess at the time I didn't really see how miserable I was.
Oh
Because
no.
one thing is, it did take me a lot of time to get used to things and find my group of people and stuff like that. But also having a part-time job, getting it and losing it just as fast because of this whole COVID thing,
Yeah.
that was awful. And thinking
God.
back to the whole tears for tears saying, do you remember that? That was a well cute little
Yeah.
quote for the horrible time everyone was having.
Yeah.
I was talking to some friends the other night, and we genuinely think we all had a drinking problem last year. It
Jesus
was
Christ.
it was the whole
Oh.
thing of a one slight inconvenience and being like, okay, I'll have a bottle of wine then. But really, just because we had nothing better to do. But this year is great, and I feel really lucky because I love my course. And
That's good.
I feel like there's a lot of people like me around me who do have a strong sense of self and they know what they want to do with their lives, but sometimes even that's not enough.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah,
fair. That's fair. I think
yeah,
definitely last year, as a second year going third year, the whole online experience was definitely interesting. And then when things kind of ramped up this year, especially with things now being back in person, I think
mm,
it felt like a bigger sense of community, which was quite
yeah,
nice. And it also meant that being back in person, I got to enjoy my courses a bit more, which is really good.
absolutely. I guess the whole online thing as well, even like if you do what you love, it kind of is disappointing and you don't really get as much out of it as you would sort of expect to. So that was really
Yeah.
challenging. But I guess this year also, like I've been putting uni aside a little bit and just sort of taking advantage of the fact that I can finally spend time and do things in London again.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I
And
need to go. Yeah, you go, you go.
I was just talking to a friend back from Stratford about it, and he did tell me a good thing, and that was that even that is, part of my uni experience, though it's not all about reading and writing all the time, but also me being in Camden with all of those punks and having a good time, and I really like that.
Oh, incredible, incredible stuff. Um, so as mentioned earlier, you are doing English and American literature.
Yeah.
What sort of things are you studying on your course? And yeah, how have you been finding it?
Well, this year I do things like romanticism and modernism.
Okay,
But I do a lot of American history within my American literature modules, which is pretty interesting. Because
okay.
especially when I tell people I study American literature, they usually say something really stupid about Americans even having literature. And
Oh God.
they do, and it's brilliant. And it's brilliant
Yeah,
because there's so much history and messed up concepts like the American dream that make it so special.
yeah.
And this year I'm doing a module called Dark Reform, which is about American scandal. And
Oh,
that's the one I
okay.
really enjoy the most, because as someone who's passionate
Yeah.
about journalism, it really teaches you how to make something controversial and scandalous, but also how to remain authentic in the way you tell your story, and how to make a story into one that provokes a reaction. It's really great.
That is really interesting. And
Yeah.
that actually nicely segues on to the next question I'm going to ask you. So, you currently are one of the members of one of the people behind the team working on the founder. You are the current designer for the founder. So, what's
Yes.
it like being a part of the editing team for that paper, and how did you get involved?
It's incredible. I never thought I'd be doing anything related to design. And I originally applied to be the features editor just because that was the section I sort of used to write for the most.
Yeah.
But then I didn't get the role, and Abra, who's now the editor-in-chief, emailed me again a bit later saying there's the designer position going and if I'd be interested in it. And at the
Oh.
time, I thought, oh, great, so no one wants to do that. So she's desperately trying to sell it to me. And I was actually with Abra the other night, and she did confirm that was the truth. But I did take it, and I'm learning so much every month trying to put an issue together. And it's just amazing. It's very time consuming, but it really takes someone to have a real interest in the paper to do this. And I guess at the end of the day, that's why Abra chose me. And I actually got my first hate mail quite recently. And in a way,
Oh.
I probably can't get over it because I keep telling everyone about it. And especially every time I have a drink, it turns into this whole thing that I share with complete strangers. But that email really made me rethink if I'm doing a good job with it. But it's one of those things that you learn from and then eventually become quite upset for the person who would even write such email, because it's a student paper and we're all doing our best. And I know I would
Yeah.
never intentionally put out an issue that would turn readers away.
Christ. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one. It's an
Mm,
interesting one.
yeah.
But speaking of your experience of writing with the founder, I know last term you were very fortunate enough to review our latest show, which was
Oh,
Sly
yeah.
Taming. And having read the review, you clearly enjoyed it. You gave some very interesting feedback and insight. So based off of that, what sort of articles do you enjoy writing for the founder?
Well, last year I was mainly writing for features and I wrote a lot of
Okay.
book reviews as well. My
Oh,
best
nice.
article, I think, probably because it caused a lot of tension, was about drugs on campus.
Oh,
And
okay.
I sort of went undercover and stalked my friends for a bit.
Oh God.
um, I made it really vague. I wanted the people who it was about to know it was about them, but not anyone else to know because there was no need really. But the
Yeah.
thing is, it really was a time when people got a bit bored of drinking and started looking for entertainment elsewhere, I guess. And I thought
Yeah.
that's so crazy for a student who's living on ready meals, trying to make ends meet, to be spending £300 on drugs constantly.
That is mad.
So yeah, so although people were a bit upset at first, they knew it was written out of concern and they thought it was written pretty well. But this year I think I really found myself in interviews, and this is the first time someone's interviewing me, so that's nice. But I did this piece in October with this London singer called Eleni Drake, who I've been a fan of since I was about 14. And
Okay.
she's doing so well at the minute. And after we did this interview together, I actually went to her gig a few weeks later and we ended up running into each other in the backstage and talking about that article. And that was so cool.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's really interesting, especially especially about the first piece you had to write. I can imagine like looking looking into kind of student life and writing about student life from that perspective can be quite an interesting subject to tackle, especially when you know a paper like you're publishing that article to a mainly student audience. I think
Yeah.
that kind of is well, I say a nice wake up call, but I think it's definitely a wake up call to like things going on behind the scenes that people wouldn't necessarily know about. But it is really nice. going on to writing your reviews and kind of how you found that experience of trying to find my words. Having that experience of writing stuff that you enjoy and really getting as much out of it as possible. I think that's incredible stuff.
It's very exciting, and with the review that I did for you guys, I sort of got invited to write that review, and I thought that's amazing.
Yeah, and we're hoping that you can come and review our next show that we're doing.
Oh, I'll be there, don't you worry.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. Those of you who don't know, we're doing Macbeth, which is why. But yeah, no, that's incredible stuff. So, a little fun fact for all of you is at home: Ali is from Stratford Upon Avon,
Yay.
literally the home of the bard. So my next question to you is about your home life. What's your experience living in Stratford Upon Avon been like for you?
Okay, Stratford Upon Avon. My story is quite unusual. I lived a lot of different places, and obviously when people first meet me, they know I have a foreign name and I talk funny because I am such a mixture of places. But really, more than anything else, it's just me being quite lazy and crazy with my speech. And it makes them think, just because they have this one distinctive thing about you, they can write your story for you and label you under anything they want. And before I even went to Royal Holloway, I was actually already reading The Founder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of the reason why I chose Royal Holloway. The seller, who's now the features editor, wrote this article back then called "Where Are You From Originally?" No, like originally. And it was brilliant, because the thing that makes me sad is not only do I not feel or have any connection to any other place to say something back to it, I'm also very patriotic and proud about this country. And it's not sort of okay when that's being undermined or taken away from you. But
Yeah.
basically, when I turned 18, I knew I wanted to move away and live on my own. And my plan was to move to Ireland. But my mum thought I was insane. And then then a family friend helped me find a job in a little village just outside of Stratford. It's about 20 minutes away. And so I started living on my own above a pub. And that's when I truly came alive and started writing my own story. And living above a pub, you know, all these boozers will always tell you there's no better people than the ones you meet over a pint. And it's actually true. You know, the first summer I was living there, I made the best friendships. I had never had anything like that before. And we really were just this group of kids who worked together in the day and drank together in the night. And we became so close. We would always look after each other. And even today, we still look back at that time and it's almost unreachable to ever have that again. And when I tell people I'm from Stratford, they usually go, "Oh, you must be spoiled rotten." And they don't know I live above a pub, and yet they're completely right. So, you know, the people in Stratford are the best people I've ever met. They make me the happiest and saddest at the same time. That's how much love there is. But kind of to go back to Stratford as such, it's obviously a place so filled with Shakespeare to the point you get a bit sick of it and think to yourself, why is there a Shakespeare face even on the bus? Like, isn't there enough? And even my friends and I took a little trip over the summer. We went to London and we get off the tube at Leicester Square. We get outside. The first thing we see is the statue of Shakespeare. And we were like, oh God, you really can't escape it.
You can't.
But it makes me think, you know, maybe that's partially where my sense of patriotism comes from, because Shakespeare is obviously such a cultural thing. You hear of Shakespeare and you think of England. But although we do get a bit sick of it, there's so much pride, and you could really tell over lockdowns especially, and this whole COVID shambles, when the Royal Shakespeare Company really suffered, and God knows they still do, and the hospitality that is so dependent on our tourism. So many people came together, and the fact that even you guys at Shakespeare Society have that on your mind is amazing to me. Yeah, I think the RSC is like one of the most precious things, and I have a lot of people around me that have real connection to it, and Stratford in Stratford, those people are so naturally theatrical as well. You can really tell they must be quite literally born out of Shakespeare. It's amazing.
No, that's an incredible story from like where you're kind of based in Stratford and sort of your connection to Shakespeare and as someone biased as the vice president of Shakespeare Society, I completely agree with you. I think you can't escape Shakespeare, no matter how hard you try. I remember when I first properly got to study Shakespeare and kind of really appreciate it, sort of when we were doing Macbeth for GCSE, and then
Mm,
seeing a bunch of productions from that, whether they were films or whether they were like shows, and then joining Shakespeare Society at university and really getting to grips with plays which I'd never really would have given the time and day to. But it was from that sense of being a part of the society, being a part of the community, that my appreciation for Shakespeare and my interest in wanting to learn more about Shakespeare really kind of came to, if that makes
mhm.
sense.
Yeah,
And I think it's interesting hearing different people's experience of how they got to know Shakespeare's work, or like you're from Stratford upon Avon, as you said, you can't
mm,
escape Shakespeare. It's literally the home of the bard. Um,
yeah. And the thing is, especially being there, it's almost like, oh, you almost can't say that you don't love him, because that would be just okay, leave.
yeah,
But but we being so exposed to it that it's kind of like you do get a bit sick of it, but it's just, there is a reason to love him, and we all do.
this nicely ties on into the next question I'm about to ask you. So I think after that conversation, I think it's fair to say you're a fairly big Shakespeare fan. Um, so what aspects of his work are you particularly drawn to? And what is your favorite piece of work that he's done?
Okay, I guess my favorite aspect of his work, although I do think that's up for a discussion, I truly believe that his tragedies are meant to be a bit funny. Because when I
Okay,
read Romeo and Juliet, I was really laughing most of the time. And maybe that's
okay.
just me being mad, but I do believe that the exaggeration in his tragedies is so ridiculous. I think it's almost meant to create the opposite effect and be slightly humorous.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, yeah, oh my God, I was actually interviewed for Cambridge once, and we did talk about this, and they just thought I am mad. But yeah, that's how I feel about it.
I think going off of that, if you look at I'm assuming you're familiar with Romeo and Juliet.
Mm,
That is a kid's adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. And,
right.
you know, at the heart of it, there are moments of tragedy. I'm gonna butcher like the entirety of my memory of this film. Um, but I think Tybalt gets smashed, which is how
Hmm.
he dies. But like the elements of tragedy are still there, but it's framed through like an entirely different, like sort of not a PG lens, kind of a PG lens.
Hmm.
Um, like reading Romeo and Juliet and seeing production of Romeo and Juliet, some go full out, some focus on like those kind of core tragic moments, but other versions like it's really weird. Like Romeo and Juliet is like one of the first Shakespeare plays you'll probably learn just ever,
That is so true. Yeah,
and it's a
absolutely.
tragedy. So the fact that like I don't know, I can't remember primary school wise if I ever did look at Romeo and Juliet first. I know in secondary school it was touched upon in year nine, but like
Mm.
it is one of the first plays. If you was to
It's
ask
it
anyone,
is
yeah,
for me. That is the first play I've ever read, because I feel the
it's
thing
mad.
about Shakespeare, it's kind of like he's always, the first description is, it's like he's like a hopeless romantic kind of thing,
Yeah,
when really there's so much more to him. But I guess, that's always from my perspective how I've seen
yeah. No, I completely agree. But yeah, no, it's interesting the order of how Shakespeare is taught, or how like certain plays are kind of held off for others. I mean, Macbeth is one most people look at GCSE. I know A level, a lot of people study King Lear. Hearing what they had to go through and hearing what they had to explore. When I
Hmm.
came to sixth form to do drama A level, because it was a different school to when I did um, from my GCSEs to my A levels, the people there had so much more Shakespeare knowledge than I ever did. And it was intriguing. Like, it's my first time hearing about plays like Titus Andronicus. I got to
I
hear
love
about
that one.
um, there was another as well. There are so many good old Shakespeare plays. I've to see it. But I got to see so many
Absolutely.
more as well. And I think
Mm.
just exploring Shakespeare is just an incredible time. Whether you're looking at his plays, his sonnets, whatever other work that goes on in that man's life, um, just it's all incredible. It all comes together so
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. There's so much to it, and there's just so much in general.
You love to see it. You love to see it. Um, this nicely leads on to my last kind of guest interview question for you.
Well,
Which
hold on, because I didn't
Yeah.
say what my favorite play is.
No, you're absolutely right. Ali, what is your favorite Shakespeare play after all that conversation? What is your favorite one?
My favorite play, and everyone always takes that away from me, is Taming of the Shrew. I love the plot.
Okay.
I love the characters. It always makes me laugh. And I tell that to people, and they're like, out of all his works, this is your favorite. And I'm just thinking, so just because it's Shakespeare, I have to choose the most complex work to make myself sound clever, or what? But I love Taming of the Shrew with pride, and I really love Richard III. I think
Oh,
Richard
okay.
III is a perfect example of propaganda, and I live for it.
Nice, nice. This is a little cross advertisement, but there is an episode of Bard Times done by the former president of Shakespeare Society, which talks about Shakespearean propaganda. And I think, and don't quote me on this, I think he talks about Richard III there. So that's a nice little segue to watch some
Amazing. Oh, I
former
will.
episodes.
Yeah.
But no, that's really interesting. Mine's Macbeth, so I'm just average.
Oh,
Um,
that's the one I don't like.
uh this is
But
how we end the interview. Uh no, I think it's interesting because for me, Macbeth is a play that I can just never escape. Um Ironically, I'm now Macbeth, but ever since doing it for GCSE, pretty sure, like without exaggeration, every year an element of that play has cropped up in my life, whether it
mm,
be a performance I've seen or I've had to perform something from it for something else. I was in the Macbeth audio drama a couple of years ago, which was put on during lockdown. Um, but Take
amazing.
Me of the Shrew as well, I think, is an interesting one. And so same with Richard III, like both are really good. Um,
Hmm.
I think I've only seen one production of Taming of the Shrew outside of university context. That was really good. And I think the way that Taming approached it, Sly Taming approached the concept of Taming of the Shrew, I think was an interesting one and had a lot of
It
interesting
was. It
themes
really
going on.
was. Yeah, yeah, I remember I didn't really know what to expect from it, and we genuinely had such a good time watching it. And oh, it was just such a good idea. I love that, in your adaptation, Catherine really had a say, like a proper say. It was not just a
Yeah,
assumption that, okay, well, she has the last word and that sort of means it all. You really just kind of took it further, and it
yeah.
was really great, and like the modern concept as well. So I can't wait to see on Macbeth. Like, maybe I will love it.
That is the hope. That is the hope. Um, so we're now going to move on to our new section of the podcast. So coming up, I'm gonna list a bunch of Shakespeare stuff because we love the Bard, we love the Shakespeare, we got some good Shakespeare news. So first up, we have our kind of Shakespeare showcase event, Fresh Folio. Submissions for pieces are still open, and they will be open until the 13th of February.
Yeah, I've actually seen that on like social media, and I had no idea what that is about.
So for those who don't know, Fresh Folio is a Shakespeare showcase event. We've never done something like this before on the scale we would like to do it. We are looking for people who are wanting to write original work inspired by Shakespeare. If they want to bring forth a concept for a Shakespeare scene, like a short Shakespeare scene, if they want to do a duologue or a monologue to just perform, it's a place for anyone to perform Shakespeare or write for Shakespeare outside of the usual context of performing in a main term show or something else like Shakespeare in 48. We've never done it before, so it's very experimental. It's very fun. If you would like to be involved, please kind of write something or sign up. We'll have a Q&A session. By the time this episode goes out, we will be doing a Q&A session on Instagram. So over the course of the day and into parts of the night, you can ask us about any qualms, queries, or concerns that you have about what Fresh Folio is, what you can submit. If you have an idea you want to briefly talk about, we can say do it. Absolutely do it. But yeah, hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
But yeah, we also have the Shadow Scheme opening up for Macbeth, which will be going out fairly soon. The Shadow Scheme is a nice opportunity for you to get to learn a bit about the behind the scenes stuff that we do for our main term show. The post for that will be going out very soon. Maybe even by the time this episode goes out, it should be out by then. But if not, message the Facebook page, badger them, and be like, I hear of a Shadow Scheme. And they will probably tell me off. But that's okay. That's okay. We also have our next academic discussion on Tuesday, the 1st of February. We will be discussing What If It Be True, the Multiverse of Bardness, looking at key moments in Shakespeare plays and pondering the question of what if things played out slightly differently? What if Banquo lived and his son Fleance died? What if Mercutio was banished and what if Romeo died early in the play? These are questions we will be discussing and how they'll affect the overall thematic beats of the rest of those plays. So come along to the pack course if you'd be interested in doing that. We also have Shakespeare D&D on the 18th of February, which the dramaturg from Macbeth, Jack Hardman, is running. Information about that should be going fairly soon if you would like to get involved. That will be an event done over Zoom. So if you like online D&D, that would be a good event for you. And finally, we have our first workshop in our acting workshop series. We have a voice acting workshop with Shakespeare alumni William Lawson. He's done some incredible voice acting work before. So it'd be really nice to see you guys come along and get involved. Now, this wouldn't also be a guest news section if I didn't talk about what you're doing for the founder. So as of recording this episode, the latest issue of the founder came out yesterday. Ali, would you like to give us a sneak peek as to when the following issue for the founder will be coming out?
Every issue, people can sort of expect the last week of every month. So we just put out an issue yesterday. It's pretty good, so check it out. Incredible
stuff. And this very nicely segues on to the end of this episode. So once again, thank you very much, Ali, for coming on to Bard Times this week. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of Bard Times. I have been your host, Theo Dudridge, and in the words of the Bard himself, better 3 hours too soon than a minute too late. Take care, everyone.